Our next step in playing cocktail style piano for Georgia on My Mind is to look at the chord symbols above the melody and figuring out which inversion we want to use for each measure. How do we do that? Let's start by taking a look at that first measure. Now, it's an F chord, see? So we know how to play an F chord, F, A, C. Now let's take a look at that melody. Okay, that first note on the melody is an A. So what we're going to do is we're going to fill in the chord below that A, because we always want to have the melody on top. If we bury the melody in the chords, then we don't hear so strongly what the melody is. So we keep the melody always on top. So let's take a look. We have a first note is an A. So let's fill in the chord below that. We know that the F chord is F, A, C, and we have the A on top. So we want the F and the C below. So there is the chord that we're going to play. We're going to play an F chord in that inversion. Happens to be the second inversion with the C on the bottom. That's the chord we're going to play below that melody. Okay? Now the melody moves, of course, and it goes. But that's okay. We don't have to move the chord. We don't have to go. That would sound a little silly. So we just go. Okay, that's how we do that. Now let's take a look at the next measure. What do we have? We have an A7 chord. How do we play an A7 chord? A, C sharp, E, G. That's the dominant 7. Okay, but now that first note of that melody in that measure is an A. So we want to take that A, put it on top. So there is our inversion. But look, the second note, we go, is just an eighth note, so we go an eighth note on the A, then we move right to that G, G natural. So there we're going to play this inversion, and then we move to the 7th. So we don't use this inversion, the root position. We could, but it's much better to use this inversion with the A on top. Okay, that's our second measure. Third measure, we have a D minor 7 chord. D minor 7. How do we play that? D, F for the minor, F natural, not F major, not F sharp. There's our D minor chord. The 7th would be a C. D minor 7 chord. Okay, now the first note on that measure is a rest. So we don't have to worry about a melody at that point, but we do want to play a chord there where that rest is. So what chord are we going to play? Well, the next note that occurs is an A. So we're going to play the A on top. Well, that happens to be root position. So here's what we're going to play. We're going to give it a... See how the melody goes A, D, A? Well, if we play a D minor chord in root position, we're already there. What about that 7th? Well, we can leave it out. It'll still sound okay. But it also, we can put it on the bottom instead of the top. We can put that C on the bottom with our thumb. Our thumb can play both a D and a C at the same time. So we can do that. See that? We also could play it by leaving out that A and just hitting these 3 notes on the rest, the first beat. Okay, so what do we have so far? F, let's take a look at the beginning of the song. F chord over that little melody. A7. Now, a rest, but we're going to play a D minor 7 chord. Okay, that's what we have so far. Now, our next chord is an E flat 9. An E flat 9. What kind of a chord is that? Well, technically, here's the E flat 9 chord. E flat, G, B flat. When it has just a 9, the 7th is assumed. A dominant 7 is assumed for a 9 chord. So we have that. But we also are going to have the 9th. What is the 9th? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, the octave. 9 is that F. Now that's an awful hard chord to play with one hand, the whole chord. Can't really reach it. So we leave off the root. Leave off the root of the chord. Why? Well, one reason is going to be played with the left hand. We're going to play that bass note is going to be an E flat. So what are the other notes in the chord? G, B flat, D flat, and the 9th is that F. Well, look, that also happens to be the melody note. The melody note is that 9th, it's an F. But we're not going to play it up here, we're going to play it down here because our melody goes. See, there's our melody. Now, I'm tempted to play that melody note with a thumb, but I can't play the rest of the chord if I do that because I want the chord to be below the melody. So I'm going to actually move my hand down to catch that, like that. G, B flat, D flat, F, and the E flat is going to be that bass note. So let's take a look at these first 4 measures. I'm going to play the chords and not the melody, just the chords in the inversions that we're going to use. F, A7, D minor, E flat 9. You can almost hear the melody in there, can't you? See that? Now let me add a bass note to that whole thing. First measure, an F on the bass, A. Now right here on this rest, I'm going to hit that D bass. All right, that's what we have going on. Let me go back over that third measure, the one with the D minor chord in it. Now, that first beat is a rest in the melody, isn't it? One thing I can do, and which I tend to do with this song, is that I will just play the bass note only on that rest, that D bass, and then add the chord over it. See how that goes? All right, let's do the first 4 measures. And that'll lead on to the next part. All right, now you're hearing it's beginning to take shape. We're not sounding that much like cocktail style piano yet, but this is getting us to that point. So here are our first 4 measures again. All right, let's take it on. Now, there's that little 2 more notes of the melody in that E flat chord. And now we're going to go to the next measure, the 5th measure, which is an F chord over an A note in the melody. So we're going to do that same inversion where the A is on top, the melody note is on top. F, A, and C down below. And I'm going to play an F on the bass. Okay, now, after the first 2 notes, first 2 beats of that measure, we're going to change in the middle of the measure. On the 3rd beat, it's going to be a D7 chord. Okay, we want to play that in an inversion that keeps the melody on top. Now we have an unusual situation here. It's not that unusual, but we have something different we haven't seen yet. The melody note is an E, but the chord is a D7 chord. Here's our D7 chord. There's no E in that chord, but that's the melody note, isn't it? So we're going to keep that melody note on top. It's an E, so we're going to take this D7 chord. We can't reach that E with this way, so we're going to let go of that D. Left hand is going to play it on the bass anyway. And we're going to play it in this inversion, except that the melody note is an E, so we're not playing this D yet. We play that E instead. But then it moves to the D, doesn't it, on the next note. So this whole measure is... That sounds perfectly fine, doesn't it? Okay. Now we're going to look at the next measure, G minor 7. Let's play a G minor 7. I'm not going to play it up here, I'm going to play it down here. G, B flat, D, F natural. What's our melody note? It's a B. It's a B flat. Okay, B flat is part of the chord, so we want that B flat on top. So the chord notes are B flat going down, G, F, B. There's our B flat, there's our G minor 7. Okay. So there's our chord, there's our melody note, and the melody quickly jumps down to a D, doesn't it? Well, here's one of the things about chording and chord style piano and cocktail style piano, and that is that we don't have to keep hitting the chord all the way through. If we hit it just at the beginning of the measure, it establishes it in the ear of the listener. There's our G minor 7 chord. Now we can go to that D note, and that chord still rings in the ear, doesn't it? It's very different than playing that G minor chord right there. We've established that. We don't have to go. We just go. And that D note could stand all by itself because we've already hit that G minor 7 chord. Now, third beat of that measure is a C7. Okay, let's put the 7 on the bottom because that B flat is above the melody of that A note. So we want the B flat on the bottom. There's our C7 chord with B flat on the bottom. However, we got something else happening here, don't we? We've got an A note in the melody. Well, let's just move that G, the fifth of the chord, let's move it up to the A. Okay? And the third we keep playing that B flat, but we don't have to worry about stretching over to hit that C because the left hand is going to play a C bass. So there's a very nice chord there. It's a C7 chord, but we've added an A note, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is a 6. This is technically called a C6-7. It's a 6-7 chord. And that's perfectly fine. We don't have to, it's not marked as a 6-7, it's marked as a C7. But the melody tells us to play that 6. And we got 2 of those. We hit the chord only once. Now let's take a look at this whole measure. See that? I'll hit the chord at the G minor, and I let go of the chord, and then I hit the chord on the C7 with the A melody, and then I could just hit that melody note a second time. Okay, now the next measure is an F chord over an A whole note melody. That's perfectly easy. We play that in this inversion, which is the second inversion. There's our straight F chord with the A on top. Now the chord changes here, doesn't it? It goes to an F sharp diminished 7 chord. Well, that's easy because our A is going to stay. That's part of the F sharp diminished chord. So all we really have to do is raise that F sharp up, and we're also going to raise the F sharp in the bass. It's going to get off of that F and go to the F sharp, and that's all we need to do. Actually, it looks like very complicated. From an F to an F sharp diminished 7, all we really have to do is just raise the F to an F sharp. And now there is no melody note in that 8th measure. It's just a whole rest. So we're going to go to a G minor 7 chord, and we can play it in any inversion we want because there is no melody. So I'm going to play it here, coming easily from G minor 7, G, B flat, D, F, and now to a C7. Okay. Notice that is a C7 with it says +5, which means augmented. Okay, very nice chord. There's the C7. We got to raise that 5th. Okay, that's as far as we're going to go right now on this song. So let's go back to the top and play it, the melody and the chords with the inversion, and the left-hand bass playing just the single note on the bass, playing the root of the chord. Okay, here we go. All right, that's all we're going to do for now. We want to practice that until we can play that. And I want you to see how, as we go along, we're going to quickly mentally calculate what inversion we're going to use on the chord. And we just do that by kind of looking a little bit ahead to the next measure and using the melody to tell us what inversion we're going to play. All right, practice that. Practice just that much. Later we'll go on and play the whole song, but right now I want you to practice just those first 8 measures, playing the melody, the chord in the proper inversion to be able to play the melody on top, and then single notes in the left hand. Okay?